Thanks for tuning in. This is the I Believe podcast, and I'm Danae, and we are going to go live with Presley and Jayden, who are two of the pediatric ocular melanoma patients in our community. So, you guys have probably heard a lot from Presley. Presley has shared his story pretty openly. His mom has shared his story a lot. And we're so thankful to Presley and his family and just all of the community that has rallied around the pediatric OMs. But we also have Jayden, who's joining us with his mom, Michelle, from Kentucky. And if you didn't catch, Presley is from South Carolina, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
South Carolina. Oh my gosh, I keep mixing it up. There's two of them. But so we have both of these two gentlemen here, and they're here to talk to us a little about just coping with their diagnosis, dealing with, kind of being a cancer patient and also being a teenager and like going through so many different life changes, so many different things that you're trying to really focus on to just be a normal kid. So, Jayden, I'm going to put you on the spot if that's okay. Do you want to just
Yep.
tell us a little bit about your diagnosis and how that started?
So yeah, you can go.
And he was entering seventh grade. So that was back in 2019. Just went for a routine eye exam when he was entering school. It's actually the day before school started. And routine eye exam, they noticed a mass in his eye. It was actually on the iris, and I always thought it was a freckle or just something like a birthmark. And so the doctor said, no, we need to get you to the Cincinnati Eye Institute. So we left there, and they had an appointment for us the next day, which was the first day of school. So he missed the first day of school, went to the Cincinnati Eye Institute, and they pretty much said that they could not treat him. They didn't know what it was. So then we ended up at the University of Cincinnati. And there, Dr. Basil Williams did a biopsy in August. So it went really quickly, like within 2 weeks, we were biopsying, and it came back inconclusive. So he went from the beginning of seventh grade, 2019, until just recently, November of 2023, where he was monitored. So we would go in, we would do all of those fun, scans, and um, they would just monitor to see if it was growing. And it showed no growth for a long time, and then all of a sudden it just grew. And I've often read like the 5 year mark is kind of where you start to see those changes. So my guess is we probably wouldn't have noticed it if that visit didn't happen. Um, and then, we would have been seeing some effects of it as it started to grow. And then that would have got us, to the eye doctor. So is there anything you want to add? No? Okay. So, yeah.
Okay, so Presley, do you want to just give us like your brief,
Yeah.
kind of what happened at the
So
initial part of your
actually, same as
diagnosis?
him, seventh grade year, I was going for a physical for baseball, and during the eye portion of that test, they found like a mass on my eye. So the
Mm-hmm.
very next day, I had an eye appointment. They discovered a mass, and it was like 3 days later, I was in Philadelphia getting checked up, and like 10 days later, I had a biopsy, and like the very next day, I had plaques radiation surgery in
Goodness.
Philadelphia for 7 days, and then since then, it's just been monitoring every 3 months, making sure everything's good. The tumor has gone down. The radiation halo around it is still a bit of a problem, but other than that, that's about where we're at in the journey.
Yeah, for sure. So Jayden, do you still have vision in the eye that was treated?
Yeah, I mean it's blurry, but I can still see pretty much fine.
And then Presley, are you the same, or did you lose completely, like all
No, I
vision?
lost it completely. So my right eye has zero vision.
Okay. Well, you guys both play sports. So which sport do both of you play? Jayden, which one do you play right now?
Basketball.
Basketball. Okay. Obviously, like, I mean, I know a lot of the people in our community, they complain that depth perception goes away if you, like, lose some level of your vision. Have you noticed that it's been a lot more difficult, or has it been okay, like, kind of just adjusting?
It's definitely been harder, but I've been getting used to it as much as I can to. But yeah,
Okay. And then Presley, you're a pitcher, right? So,
Yes, ma'am.
like, is that easier? Is it easier to throw a ball than it is to, like, catch it?
Um, Yeah, I would say it's easier to throw than catch.
Okay, it's so crazy. All right, so being a kid who has a cancer diagnosis can be really pretty scary. So Presley, what are some of the things that helped you from kind of beginning to now?
Really, my friend group and like just the people around me really helped me because when it first happened, you feel very alone when you're in the doctor and you're alone and treatment and surgeries and this, that, and the other. You just feel very alone and scary. So the group of people around me who let me know it was going to be okay, who had my back at every corner, every potential thing where I was getting down on myself, whether it was baseball, school, no matter what, just the people who helped build me up and keep me, motivated and keep me just in the right direction. That's really what helped me the most.
So Jayden, what about you? Like I know your mom has been really involved. Have you had pretty good friend support?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it definitely helps because, they keep me busy and, I get to do a bunch of stuff with them. So yeah.
Okay, so just in maybe the last year, what's maybe your favorite thing that you've done with some of your friends? Just any activity.
Um, me and my friends went on a trip to Hocking Hills in Ohio and did hiking and stuff. So
That
definitely
sounds
kind of
super cool.
busy and yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Presley, what about you? What's one of your favorite things that you've done in the last, like during your senior year before you graduated?
Um, I'm going to be really biased, but playing baseball, there's nothing better when you and your boys are playing baseball, no matter where it's at. But then prom was really incredible as well. That's been one of the highlights of the year for me.
Awesome. Okay, well, I love that. So Presley, what I have watched is I've watched you go from, I mean, I've only known you for maybe 4 years now, but I have watched you kind of go from maybe not knowing as much about your diagnosis to really, really learning and kind of learning more about what is ocular melanoma and also being a part of like advocating for this disease and just making sure that people know that it's important to get their eyes dilated. I've seen you do like different fundraising events, things like that. But aside from, getting involved in that way, what are some of the things that you feel like have helped you just kind of stay present with just your life and not let cancer kind of take over?
Very much, I don't want to say not bringing it up, but almost like ignoring it to an extent. Because my biggest fear from the beginning was, oh, I'm going to be the cancer kid, and I don't want. And this is one thing I'm very grateful for with my mother. She kind of sheltered me from it in the beginning. She was like, I don't want this to be like a nightmare and what he's worried about 24/7. So I was more babied into it than I have a feeling a lot of people are, where they're just thrown into it. So I feel like that's played a big part. And then really not ignoring it, but looking at the bright side of it. Like I've been given this, curse, this cancer. What can I do with it to make it better? How can I go around and help people, you know, make sure their eyes are dilated, whether they need it or not, making sure everybody knows that this could happen to anybody and trying to help prevent it in the future or make it easier in the future for people so they don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, I love that. Jayden, what about you? Like, what are some of the things you feel like have helped you in the last, it's only been a few months, I know, but just in the last few months that have helped you kind of just stay focused on being you and being, I don't know, able to be present with friends, with your sports, as opposed to like having cancer take over your life?
Just always keeping a positive mindset. I always think that like, it could be worse. I could not hang out with my friends. It always could be worse. So
Yeah, for sure. I think that perspective can be helpful sometimes. But obviously, I mean, like, it's okay on the days that it is really bad, right? The days that it sucks and the days that it's super hard, those are okay too. Um, okay, so I wanted to ask you guys. I know, like, Presley, your journey with this has been a little bit different, like, in the sense that you maybe didn't really know for sure that you had a cancer diagnosis when you first were diagnosed. And you're, what are you, 7 years into this almost? No,
Uh,
5.
just about to be 6,
Okay, almost
going into
6.
year 6.
So 6 years ago, like you were initially diagnosed, and as far as I understood from your story, your mom didn't really like come out right and tell you you had a cancer diagnosis at the beginning, right?
No, she did not. It
Okay, do
was
you feel
a
like
few
that was
months
helpful
later.
for you?
I really do.
Yeah.
Because for me as a 13-year-old, you're in these doctor's office. I'm in Philadelphia. I was in Philadelphia for a little over a month. And as a seventh grader, it's kind of like, oh, I'm on vacation. I'm in this new city. and you're in these doctors' offices, and it can be scary. So I think the fact that they didn't pile this on me made it a lot more easy to handle in a way.
Mhm.
And then later on, as you're just going through like scans and stuff, okay, this is what you've been diagnosed with. These are the steps you have to take. I think that's what really helped me. Because I feel like if she would have just dropped it on me that first day, it would have been a lot harder than it ended up being.
Well, and I think you were younger too, right? You were 13
Yeah,
versus like
13.
Jayden when you got like the official cancer diagnosis, like it was you were a little older. Like are you 17 now or 16?
17.
17, yeah. So like I mean that those couple of years, that's I mean you're practically nearing adulthood by the time you're 16, 17, 18 versus when you're 13 like you're just kind of barely entering like I mean, I just think about my 11-year-old and I'm like he's not even ready to go into junior high yet. Like I can't imagine him having, you know, a diagnosis and being told about it, but at the same time, I don't know, the parent in me kind of feels like honesty can be helpful, but I think to an extent. Michelle, do you mind if I ask you, like, what was kind of your reasoning or your kind of thinking around talking to Jayden about his diagnosis?
So at first, we didn't really know. And then he got the second biopsy. And I remember one day he said, "Mom, do I have cancer?" And I said, "Well, I don't know yet. We don't know." And he asked, like, "Can you just be honest with me when it comes back? I want to know." So he was actually at school when everything came back. Um, and I went to school and we sat down and we talked about it. I said, "Do you want to leave or do you want to go back to school? What do you want to do?" And he's like, "Nope, I want to go back to school." And we just kind of did. Every day was just get whatever was on our list over with. We looked at Presley's story a lot. We talked about him a lot. We also talked about he lost his eyesight and Jayden had the chance to save it. We knew, all the risk in doing the radiation and the things, but we just didn't really talk about those. We just said, this is what's next. And Jayden's doctor was in Miami, Florida. So kind of like Presley, there wasn't somebody around here that could treat it because it is so rare. So yeah, we made a little trip to Miami. We had some fun moments, to try and get through those weeks. But I was very honest with him, and he does have access to the internet, so I'm sure he did some searching on his own. But I think he handled it well, and he just kept going, and he kept busy. And it wasn't that we didn't talk about it, but it wasn't something that we talked about often. So we just kind of lived our everyday life.
Well, it's kind of like, I don't know, like the monster under your bed. Like I think of, the times that I used to be like a kid when I was scared of like maybe a monster in my closet. Like sometimes just pulling it out, looking at it, talking about it, naming it, that can help. But other times you just leave it in the closet and let it do its thing.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't deserve any more space in our everyday lives than it has to take up, right? So,
Right.
and I know like the further you get into this, the more that you kind of get into a little bit of a routine, right? You're going to have follow-ups, like, and I think, Presley's a little further into this, so he's got this kind of down to a science almost, to where like, he knows what to expect roughly every 3 months with his eye scans, with having any kind of like full body scans for surveillance. And that's something that takes time to get used to. But I think it's also just important, like, that we recognize that all of us, it doesn't matter how old we are, like, we have to adjust. And I think that you guys are adjusting beautifully. And I know, like we've said before, nobody wanted to join this club, and we really wish that you guys didn't have to be part of it, especially so young. But it's so healthy that you guys are able to talk about this, that you have such good support. And I'm so grateful to both of you for being here and being willing to just share your story. Okay, so I have kind of a personal question. And I had asked Presley about this ahead of time. So Michelle and Jayden, if you guys don't want to talk about this, just say pass.
Yeah.
But Presley, have you done any therapy throughout the last little while since you were diagnosed? And
Yes,
if so,
ma'am, I
have you found
have.
it helpful?
I find it super helpful. Just being able to talk with somebody about the good, the bad, the ugly, things you're scared about, things you're super excited about. I just think it's great to just just talk, whether you need to or not. I think it's just a great thing. And I would like, I think everybody should do it, whether you have cancer, whether you don't, whether you have the greatest life of all time or not. I think everybody, at least once a month, maybe every other month, you should go and just talk. I think it's good for your soul and just good for your just overall well-being to just get things off your chest and just talk.
No, I love that. I think it's so important. Michelle, Jayden, do you guys have anything you want to add there?
So we haven't ventured down that road, but I see that in the future. And it was hard on Jaden's sister when all of this was going on. That's something that we did with her. Um, you know, she's very close to him. There was a point in time where we didn't know, is this something genetic? Is it something that she could possibly have? So there were a lot of fears there, but Jayden has a strong faith. And I think that definitely has helped him. But I think that therapy is definitely something that we see in the near future. Just like Presley said, I think it's good for anyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I also advocate for therapy. I have therapy every week. My kids know that I have therapy every week because I talk about it. And so, I mean, if we can do anything for you guys listening, like I hope we can help remove some of the stigma around mental health and just validate that it's okay to need to talk to anyone about this, to talk to your friends, talk to good people, but also to know that talking to like a professional therapist, a psychologist, can be really, really beneficial in the right settings. Especially if you're going through something like this, because the harsh reality of it is that a cancer diagnosis is somewhat traumatic, and we're going to feel that in different ways at different times. And I think that maybe one of the gifts of being a kid when you go through this diagnosis is that you have a little bit more ways to compartmentalize, right? Like that your brain is just kind of built to do that, versus when you're an adult, I think we tend to almost like overthink it sometimes.
Right.
And I think that, that can be helpful, right? Being an adult and coping can be helpful because you've got life experience and maybe a different support system. But I think that, maybe that is one of the parts of being a kid that can help build your resiliency, is that you kind of have that built-in radar for like shutting things down and letting things go when you don't need to deal with it. All right. Well, do you guys have anything else you want to add to that?
I can't think of anything.
Okay, I loved your guys' thoughts. It's been great. So let's just briefly summarize, like, where are you today? So let's just like kind of backtrack. I know we started a little bit with your diagnosis, but so Presley, how much time has it been since your diagnosis? And can you tell us what treatment you had? And then we'll go into something else after that.
In December or early November, it'll be 6 years since they found it, and I've had Plaques radiation. Since then,
Okay.
I had just Plaques radiation for a week, and it's been monitoring it since then.
And have you had like any of I know sometimes they do like vision preserving steroids or shots, like Avastin shots. Have they done any of those for you?
Beforehand, I couldn't do it before I turned 18, so I had none of that available to me. And just recently, it has become available to me. But my doctor, Dr. Bergstrom, says at this point, I've lost everything. There's no need for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if he feels like there's a chance or a need for it in the future, we can definitely do it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and then Jayden, let's just backtrack. It's been how many months since your initial diagnosis and treatment?
So I had my treatment in April.
You were diagnosed in November.
November.
Yeah. So
Okay.
November diagnosed, and then April we went to Miami.
Okay, so
Yeah.
roughly almost, I mean, coming up on a year since diagnosis. I guess that's what, maybe 10 months-ish since diagnosis, and about, I can't do the math from April to now. That's too many things to do in my brain. But from April to now, it's September. So April,
Yeah.
May, June, July, August, like 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay. And with the biopsy, I know both of you had talked about having a biopsy done, and it sounds like you guys had a biopsy done before treatment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, and that's super different, like, because most adults who have ocular melanoma, and this could actually be because you're kids. I would actually love to ask both of the doctors who treated you if they do that because you're a kid, or if it's just because it's better to do. Maybe the size of the tumor has something to do with it. But in most adult cases, you actually have the biopsy done the same time as plaque radiation.
Mhm.
And I think it's probably maybe a little more conclusive when they're an adult, like maybe the imaging shows up differently. But it would be interesting to find out, like, if that's partly just because of pediatric cases that they're making sure, like doing a biopsy first before they treat anything, because they don't want you to lose vision and they don't want to obviously treat something that is not needing to be treated. Anyway, okay. So with the biopsy comes the surveillance, right? So having scans of some kind. So Presley, do you have scans periodically? And if
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
like
Every
roughly how
3
often?
months.
Every 3
Every
months?
3 months. Ultrasound and MRIs.
Okay. And then Jayden, are you to a point that you've had any kind of surveillance scans, like full body, liver, chest CT, any of those kinds of things?
Yeah, so I've had 2 full body scans as of now. And then I do like ultrasounds and stuff for my eye every 3 months. And
Yeah. So every 2 months we do the full body, every 3 months the eye. So he just finished his second one, and then this week coming up we have the ultrasounds and all of those things, and also checking up on the plaque radiation and how that impacted the tumor. When we first went, it shrunk just a little bit. So I'm hopeful that when we go back, it's on Thursday actually this week that we see some changes. I thought that you got radiation and it just zapped it and made it small and it just went
If
away.
only it worked that way.
Right,
Hmm.
right. No, it doesn't work that way. So yeah, and the plaque radiation, Jayden would not be a candidate to do it again if it didn't work.
Mhm.
And I don't know that anybody ever wants to go through that ever
I
again,
wouldn't want to
but
do it again.
you know. So
Jayden's rolling his eyes like, hell
yeah,
no.
no. But we did that for a week also, and yeah, so following up with all of those every 2 to 3 months basically, and it's a full day. Those scans are a full day.
So do you guys, because you were treated in different states than where you live, I know Presley, like you often are traveling to Philadelphia to go see your doctor in Philadelphia. Do you have like the full body scans and things done in Philadelphia as well?
So up to this point, it's just me going to Philadelphia for Miss Carol Shields,
Okay.
and she does my treatment there. But now that I've turned 18, Dr. I can't remember his name, but I will start doing body scans in Philadelphia as well. But I have not
Okay.
done that yet.
Okay, like Dr. Sato and Dr.
Yeah,
Orloff.
Dr. Sot. That's him. I couldn't
Okay,
think
and
of it.
then
Blank.
for you guys, Michelle, Jayden, do you guys travel to Florida for these scans, or are you doing them locally in Kentucky?
so for my MRI, we go to Cincinnati Children's to
Okay.
get the scans.
So since he was young enough, we got that benefit that we could go to Children's Hospital here. And we shouldn't have to go back down to Miami unless there's any complications. He had Dr. Basil Williams, who was in Cincinnati, and then during that 5-year waiting period, he moved to Florida. So that's why we traveled down there. And there was no one here in this area to treat him. So
Okay, well, scans are not fun. I have scans coming up at the end of this month, so I know like it just kind of feels a little disruptive to your everyday life. And then you have to wait for results. And I'm sure, like, Michelle, you probably feel this maybe a little more heightened as a mom. Um, just that waiting period can be super rough, just to get the answers. But I hope that everything with your guys' future scans goes super well and that everything continues to show shrinkage or stabilization. And like Michelle, I was the same as you. When my tumor was treated in my eye, initially I went back and it was like I was going back like 2 weeks after treatment and then 2 months after treatment. And then it was maybe 3 months or 6 months later and it still hadn't shrunk very much. And I had a pretty massive tumor myself. And it was really kind of discouraging at first that they were like, oh, yeah, like this is okay. Like as long as it's not growing, that's a good thing.
Right.
And I can tell you, like, I've talked to countless patients who essentially just have like a frozen, radiated, dead tumor in their eye. And they just have never, ever shrunk at all. And they just kind of gradually died over time. But it can be really kind of frustrating, especially when, maybe our perception of how radiation is supposed to work says that it should just make it shrink. So
Right.
just know that you're not alone in
Yeah.
in wishing that it would just shrink faster and that you would have that kind of reassurance. And I hope that everything continues to go well.
Thank you.
I agree. I'll be praying for both of
Okay,
you.
so, go ahead, Presley.
Oh no, I was just saying I'll be praying for both of you, and I wish you guys nothing but the best in future scans and everything that's coming up.
Thank you.
Well, I love it, and you guys are so. I'm honestly, I'm really grateful that you guys have been able to connect through like online
yeah.
and through obviously like
Yeah.
this is maybe one of the first times you've actually talked, but to be able to hear each other's stories, I think it's. I mean, I know for me it helps like to hear other people and to hear of other people like me. So I hope that it's been helpful for you guys to hear from each other and just to know that like okay, like there's somebody else like me who gets it.
Yeah, it has been helpful. And when Jayden was going through radiation, I would message Presley's mom and say, okay, is this normal? Or did you go through this? Or, just having questions. Jayden would say, because I would do, research, and then I would also go on your Facebook page and read things like from people, and he would say, Mom, but that's so and so, and they're 60 years old. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Well, Presley says, so because it is so rare in the younger kids,
Yeah.
so but it's definitely been very helpful just to have one person. I mean, we know no one in this area or close to this area that has gone through this.
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely very rare already, and it's even more rare. Like I think if we look up the statistics, pediatric ocular melanoma makes up less than one person in the 6 per million
Yeah.
in the diagnosis. It's such a rare thing for you guys to end up diagnosed with this as kids. It's absolutely probably one of my worst fears as a parent, just knowing that that my kids have kind of the same biological features, even though we don't think that there's any genetic connection. It's still always something that I will carry as something that I'm worried about. But I think that it's incredible to see how you guys have just navigated this and how you have kind of coped in each phase. And I think that it's important to illustrate that like, okay, like Jayden, you're really new to this. And Presley, you're a lot further into this. And both of the places where you guys are at today are totally valid. And you're doing absolutely all the right things and just taking good care of yourself and just kind of following what your doctors are talking about. And if you guys have any questions, like definitely feel free to reach out to me, reach out to us, and we would be happy to support you guys. But I hope that, this doesn't have to take up too much of your life. So I don't want to take up too much of your time today. You guys can get back to just regular weekend life. I know, Presley, you've been traveling and doing a lot of fun things. And that's been so cool to see. Do you want to tell us a little about kind of what you're traveling for and why you decided to do this?
Yeah. So right after I started coming into like realizing what I'd been diagnosed with, I came up with this thing called the Polaroid Project, and I created a bucket list. So over the last 2 years, I've been capturing Polaroid photos, capturing moments in time, memories, and trying to check things off my bucket list. So I've been doing a lot of traveling all over the United States and really the world, trying to capture these moments in time, because I really just don't want to let a single day pass. Like when I go to bed at night, I want to, be able to go to bed saying, if this is it, I'm beyond grateful. And I think if I can do that every single day, that's how I really want to live my life. And I think that makes me the most excited.
Oh, I love that.
Mhm.
All right. Well, Jayden, it's your senior year. What are you most looking forward to this year?
Yeah.
I would say basketball.
And when does the season start? Just so, we can keep
Um,
tabs.
Around November.
Okay.
Yeah.
So coming up, not quite, but
Yeah.
soon.
Last year, Jayden's team, actually during his diagnosis, his team made it to the state tournament. And, in Kentucky, basketball is a big deal. So he got to play at the University of Kentucky and be surrounded by that team. And that team definitely helped us get through the hardest moments because we were always busy with him. We were surrounded by people, and he got to experience some great moments. So hopefully this season will be just as good.
No, that's awesome. Well, I hope that goes so well. All right, last question, then I'm gonna let you guys go. Thank you guys again for being here and helping us to advocate for pediatric ocular melanoma. So my last question for you is, why is pediatric cancer awareness important to you? And who do you want to advocate for and with? So Presley, I'll let you go first.
It's important to me because I've lived it. A lot of people are diagnosed later in life, so they wouldn't know what it's like to be a kid, more or less a 13-year-old, and then growing up and going through high school with it. So I think that's what really makes it important for me. And just the people, like when you're in the hospital, pediatric really, you see all these little kids around you, none of which deserve any of what they're going through. So I really advocating for all of them and advocating for really everybody in general. Just get your eyes checked, get anything checked to make this as avoidable and as stoppable as possible.
No, I think that's so important. Thank you. Jayden, what about you? Like, as you're kind of new to this community, who do you think it's important to, or, why is it important to you that people advocate for pediatric ocular melanoma?
What do you think?
I think with Jayden, it's finding kids like him, like Presley, connecting kids. When he was asked to do this, he was like, "Mom, but what kids will watch this? What kids will see this? There are no kids." But I think there's more kids than we probably even know about, that we need to get kids their eye exams at an earlier age, and advocate for that for sure. But I think kids like him,
Yeah.
the rare cancers that kids are dealing with.
Well, I appreciate both of you guys, or I guess all three of you, for being here, for taking the time to just talk to our community a little about your stories and how you've been coping. And again, I'm so grateful that you guys have the resiliency and just the kind of awareness around your diagnosis and around what's happened to you. And I want to thank you guys again for showing up, and thank our live audience, those of you guys who tuned in, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. It was incredible to meet you, Jayden, Michelle.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Awesome. You guys did so